Travis Reier and Charlie Potter, the BamaOnline.com staff from outside Wednesday's practice at the University of Alabama, actually inside Coleman Coliseum. Got on our matching Catholic school outfits today, as you can see, and ready to bring you another edition of Instant Analysis. This one in advance of Alabama's big road trip to Texas A&M on Saturday, Charlie, a matchup of top 10 teams at Kyle Field, a renovated, rebuilt, refurbished, however you want to describe it. Kyle Field ought to be electric down there in College Station on Saturday. How about this team right now going into what is really a different kind of matchup defensively than what they've seen the last 2 weeks? And still some questions out there, some doubters out there about this team, this defense's ability to match up with a spread offense, with some tempo, and a quarterback that can move a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the test for Alabama all along. And this will be by far its biggest test of the season. And, I mean, we've seen a little bit, I guess, against Ole Miss, but this is going to be a chance to see how these young defensive backs react. I mean, we know Cyrus Jones is a veteran. He's gonna do probably pretty well. And then Eddie Jackson and Gino have been in this situation before, but not as safeties. Mm-hmm. So I think the secondary is going to be what I'm going to be looking at, because A&M has a plethora of really, really good receivers. And you and I both know that Kyle Allen's a very capable quarterback who, like you said, possesses the ability to run. So I think it's going to, a lot of the load, I guess, is going to be on the secondary shoulders, because we know what the defensive front can do, and the linebackers have held up. It's going to be interesting to see how these young DBs react, because the environment is going to be hostile in College Station.
No doubt, and I think in the secondary, they've got to tackle well. First and foremost, I think early A&M is going to look to see how much easy stuff they can get on the secondary by flipping the ball out there to those guys that you mentioned, especially Christian Kirk, the electric true freshman. Try to get them in space one-on-one with Marlon Humphrey, Minka Fitzpatrick, maybe even Ronnie Harrison, and see if those young guys can tackle. I think it sounds simple, but it can be very difficult, and it's important for Alabama, because if they can tackle early, that's going to make A&M push the ball down the field, which requires time, and that's when I think Alabama's front can really become a factor. As we saw out at practice today, some of the combinations they're able to put out there in terms of the dime rabbits, and what we've seen from Rashaan Evans and Tim Williams in recent weeks helping out that pass rush. I think it becomes the kind of game Alabama wants if that happens. But it starts with the easy throws, limiting yards after catch. And I know A&M's talked a lot about the improved running game or being more committed to it. I'll believe that when I see it. I'm personally more interested to see how Alabama does with A&M's quarterbacks running than I am Trey Carson really inflicting much damage on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to be an issue. I mean, A&M's running game may be improved. I mean, they can say that, and it looks like it has. I mean, I think they averaged less than 150 yards a game last year, and they're up to close to 200 this year. But they haven't faced a defensive front like Alabama's, and Alabama has faced running games in Arkansas and Wisconsin and Georgia that are far better than A&M's. I don't think that's going to be a facet to this game. If it is, Alabama's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
I agree with you completely. This is that game that all Alabama fans know that teams like A&M give problems to the Crimson Tide, and we'll be able to see if Allen gets out of the pocket and makes those plays that Johnny Manziel has in the past, then it's going to be a long afternoon.
Boy, I tell you, Christian Kirk, watching this guy on tape for a true freshman to come in, Percy Harvin at Florida is who comes to mind for me, because not only does he impact the offense so much, kicking game, he is huge. He's had 2 punt returns of over 55 yards this year, 1 for a touchdown. So J.K. Scott again, and those coverage units. Tony Brown's been great. Michael Niswander's been very good on kickoff coverage. It really takes on a premium this week, because this is a guy who can do it in just about every facet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key too, because Alabama struggled in their coverage units before, before this season. This season they've really shored that up, and I think Tony Brown is really the guy to look at, because not only is he a gunner on punt team, and he's down there what seems like every kick, but he's down there on kickoffs too, and they got a lot of young guys that have been stepping up. I know Sean Burgess-Becker has done it. Even Minka Fitzpatrick's been doing it too. And so I think that's an area of the game Alabama feels pretty good at this point in the season.
Offensively, I'm thinking we'll see a blueprint from Wisconsin and Georgia, right? Hopefully. Come out and pound this A&M defense in between the tackles or in the interior for the most part, and help Jake Coker be the efficient quarterback we've seen in previous road games, or at least one neutral site game and a road game.
I mean, I think you need to control the ball. Like you need to definitely win the time of possession.
Arkansas
in this game.
did that.
And if you do that, then you give their offense less opportunities. You give your defense more time to rest. I mean, Alabama's defense does go up against a no-huddle offense in practice every day. I guarantee they're better conditioned, but that still doesn't translate to the game. If Alabama can establish a run game, give the ball to Derrick Henry, maybe even notch up his career high in carries a few more times, get Kenyon Drake involved, it's going to be a good day. But then if they're going to continue to take those deep shots, which I'm sure A&M will have some kind of game plan against that, then you're going to give the ball back to an offense that can make plays at the drop of a hat. So I just think you turn this into that grinder game that Nick Saban has mentioned a bunch of times, and things will probably go your way.
You look at Wisconsin, you look at Georgia, I thought perimeter edge rushers were the strengths for both those teams, or at least a strength. Certainly for Georgia, a top strength. How did you neutralize those guys? Derrick Henry, career days in both games. The interior of this A&M defense might be improved, but not enough to convince you not to make them the focal point of your approach this week. Derrick Henry's had a ton of carries the last, 2 or 3 games. You see another 25 plus for him Saturday?
I think if you're smart, you see that. I mean, I don't think they're going to come out and try to go into a shootout with A&M. I don't think that's smart. I think we see a repeat performance. I think he can get more yards from those carries than he did against Arkansas, because I don't think outside of the edge rushers that A&M's defensive line is anywhere near what Arkansas's was. And I think conversely, you have to pay attention to those edge rushers and Myles Garrett and Hall. Cam Robinson's been banged up in practice. He hasn't been the same guy he was last year. How did they hold up in that regard? If they do feed Derrick Henry the ball up the middle like they have been, then they'll be safe. But we've seen a lot of those jet sweeps they like to do. Kiffin can't stay away from those. So it'll be interesting to see in that regard.
No coincidence, I don't think, that we see Brandon Green back at the tight end spot last week. I don't think that was just for Arkansas.
No.
I think they had this week in mind too, because tight formations can really help you with Hall and Garrett, and also make you more of a road paving, road grading type offense in terms of running the football. And I think, again, as much as last Saturday, the approach we saw with Green, and he's still out there at tight end today, had to do with what's coming up specifically this week, and even maybe next week against Tennessee, because that's another defense I think that when you look at on the inside, you can kind of have your way with them a little bit. So what do you think? What kind of game are we looking at? Will Alabama get the game they want, which I think we just outlined, more of a grinding game, ball control, dominate up front, make Allen make throws down the field, force him into some mistakes, or you think we're getting a shootout like we saw a couple of years ago?
I don't think it'll necessarily be like it will when McCarron and Manziel duked it out, but I think it could be more high scoring than I think some people would think. It's not going to be anything like it was last year, a 59-0 game.
No.
But if Alabama can come out and run the football, they'll control the game. That's what's going to happen. I could see this in the 30-point range, the mid-20s.
Winner gets to 30, I think.
And then, that's the game that Alabama wants. That's, at the end of the day, that's what it wants. They're gonna run the football, and you got to take those intermediate throws and then hopefully open up something for Calvin Ridley downfield.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because the team that supposedly has the speed has talked about being more physical. The team that's physical has talked about being more dynamic on defense. We're going to find out who's gotten closer to the middle of both those on Saturday afternoon at Kyle Field. So for Charlie Potter, I'm Travis Reier, encouraging you to keep it right here on BamaOnline.com for more coverage of Crimson Tide athletics.